Kind of weird. Almost like we just finished up some Marvel content and now there's some new one. I really got to get used to this because it is not something that I have been accustomed to over the past year. It's just been 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces of Marvel content a year. Well, it's been 2 weeks. Here we go again. So the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier has dropped on Disney+. Now, like with WandaVision, we are going to be doing spoiler-filled reviews for every single episode of the show. So if you haven't seen episode 1 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, then click away, come back to the video after you've seen it because we are going to be talking full spoilers. Okay, here we go. So right off the bat, what I'm going to say about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is, it's different than WandaVision, but in a few specific ways that I think are going to affect the way that I talk about the show as compared to WandaVision. I think these videos are going to be significantly shorter than WandaVision simply because there's less to talk about. And again, this could just be an episode 1 sort of thing. There might be tons and tons of things to talk about in episodes 2 through 6, but for episode 1, there isn't a lot to really talk about, and that's for a few reasons, I think. One of the things I definitely felt when watching the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that this definitely feels more like a movie that was cut up into 6 parts rather than a TV show that was 9 parts as compared to WandaVision. WandaVision definitely felt like a TV show each episode, and obviously the structure lent itself to a television series, right? Episode 1 was the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on and so forth. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier obviously doesn't have that benefit, but it still doesn't actually feel like a TV show. It really does just feel like a mini-series almost. Now, that's not a good or a bad thing, but in terms of pure episodes, this episode just ended up being a lot of setup, character development, and backstory. And I think that's okay because if you think about a film, the first 1/6 of that film is generally mostly, if not all exposition. It'd be an action scene at the beginning, which is exactly what episode 1 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is. It's an action sequence at the beginning that's really cool, and then character development and exposition and setup. We're going to get into it in episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I'm sure, but this episode, really not a lot to talk about because it's just a lot of setup. Now again, this is not a bad thing, this is just due to the nature of the structure of this show. So let's talk about what happened in episode 1 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was a lot of character development for Sam Wilson and a lot of character development for Bucky Barnes. But first, we gotta talk about that opening action sequence because yes, that was incredible. I think that if we saw this on a big screen in IMAX, it would have been, well, just breathtaking. I think that this shows Marvel flexing their muscles and saying, hey, we're making a TV show that is at the quality of a film. And I think that is incredible. It looked great. It felt great. That guy who was on the ground in the car talking to Sam over the intercom could have done with a little bit less of him. It kind of made it feel a little goofy and cheesy. And especially at the end when Sam rescues the guy and everyone cheers and the guy pumps his fist in the air, I was like, this feels, 90s? This just kind of feels, I guess cheesy is the best word to use. But yeah, I digress. It was still really, really fun. And then from there, it's a lot of character development on both sides. So let's talk about each character individually. I know that they're interspersed with each other throughout the episode, but we'll talk about first Sam Wilson. And I have to say, I was a little bit disappointed. Now, I really do appreciate that Marvel is trying their hardest to give Sam Wilson a more relatable character. I really do think that that's admirable because it's important when you have the lead, when your show is literally called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and you are the Falcon, then yeah, it's important that everybody relates to you and at least understands where you're coming from. So on that level, I understand. And it's not really the showrunner or the writers of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier's fault because here's the thing. In the previous MCU films, there has been basically zero attempt to characterize Sam Wilson other than the guy with wings. I mean, yes, there was the scene in The Winter Soldier where he was at the counseling session and that really was a good scene for Sam Wilson. Other than that, there hasn't been an inkling, nothing about this ship, about his sister, about his nephew. So the fact that all of a sudden they decide to put all this exposition in there, it felt very abrupt. Like, hey, oh yeah, we're trying to make Sam Wilson relatable. Here's a bunch of exposition and backstory. Okay, fine. It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. Although the bank scene, I have to say, was a little bit, not cringy, but it was just sort of, you could see where it was going. It's very cliche. You knew that they weren't getting the loan, and that's part of character development, all that sort of stuff. I get it. I do. But still, it felt very much like Marvel was trying to just humanize him in 30 minutes, let's say. Now, Bucky Barnes is a different story because Bucky Barnes has the groundwork for such rich character development already laid out for him. Again, this is not the showrunner or the writers of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier's fault because they obviously couldn't control what came before. However, they did get to reap the benefits with Bucky Barnes in a big way. I I really did not expect a scene as emotional and as gut-punching as when he finds out and he realizes that he's the one who killed that man's son. That is something I did not expect to see from the show. Is it anything like the finale of WandaVision? No, but it really does speak to the core of the character and how he's trying to deal with his grief, and I really did like that. Now, not to just compare this show to WandaVision all the time, because that's not what we're here to do. These shows stand on their own, and they're going to be judged based on their own merit by me. But there is one thing that I want to talk about, and that is that the charisma that I found from Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany is not quite there with Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie in my eyes. I think that pure charm and comfortability and just confidence and charisma that was radiating from Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany in their acting, I think is not quite as clear or as strong in this episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Maybe it will develop as we go along, but I found it a little bit lacking. And again, the only reason I'm comparing them is because we have a duo show, I guess, with Wanda and Vision, and another duo show with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I found that their character developments were not quite enough to elevate the characters as much as WandaVision did for those two characters. Again, it took some time for WandaVision, so I'll give Falcon and the Winter Soldier the benefit of the doubt as we move along. Now, I did say that there aren't as many things to talk about in Falcon and the Winter Soldier because it's not quite the same TV show mystery that WandaVision was, but there are still some lingering questions. And I think one of the biggest ones revolves around Steve Rogers. Is he dead? I think it's almost implicit when Sam Wilson says, since Cap is gone. I think that means that he's implying that he's dead, but that could also be a red herring because I think it's very intentional that they spend some time with Torres and with Sam talking about Steve and where he goes, and then Sam in the next scene is handing off the shield to the Smithsonian and talking about how Steve is gone. But he's not dead? He didn't say dead, obviously, and maybe he just doesn't want to say the word dead, but I think it's really interesting how they're avoiding that term. Does that mean anything? Is Old Man Cap going to show up again? Is he actually on the moon? I think it's an interesting question to think about. And of course, for those of us who have been paying attention to the Marvel leaks and rumors, yours truly, as well as many of my viewers, we all knew that James Rhodes was going to appear in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I didn't expect it to be episode 1, but I am glad to see him there. It's not a cameo for cameo's sake, otherwise they would have saved it for episode 6, right? And maybe he will come back in episode 6 in the War Machine armor. Who knows? But I think it's really clever and really nice that he was there in that capacity to really cheer up Sam and try to motivate him and just be there for him. I think it's really cool to see Avengers be there for each other. Aside from that, I mean, you have the Flag Smashers in the introduction of US Agent, but these are really set up things, right? Nothing much happens aside from Bucky goes on a date and tries to reconcile with his past. I think the flashback scene was really, really effective. And then you have Sam Wilson's whole arc with the loan and trying to get his fishery and the boat and all that sort of stuff up and running again with his sister. I think, look, at the end of the day, Marvel really wants to make these characters more relatable to us, and they couldn't dedicate a whole movie to them, I understand, because, let's be honest, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier would not have grossed as much as Avengers Infinity War. That's not its fault. Obviously, a lot of characters would not have grossed. She-Hulk, for example, is not going to gross as much, so they put them on TV, they felt that they could do it better this way, and to its credit, I think it's working pretty well. I just need to see where the story is going. This show feels more like it would have been better if it was dropped all at once, maybe, because again, it just feels like it's meant to be seen as a one continuous single narrative from beginning to end, unlike WandaVision, where it is very episodic in nature. That's just me. That's sort of why I felt that this first episode, while not amazing, did a good job of giving the exposition and the setup that this show needs to go on forward. So, what did you guys think of the first episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to do so. Thank you guys so much for the support. We're so close to 500. That is incredible. The episode of the Access Blockbusters podcast, Marvel Mania, is coming up soon with WandaVision answering all of your guys' questions and talking about the season as a whole. If you want to check out some more videos, check out the videos on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.